I welcome everyone to day 7 of the Sea Boot Camp organized by the Creators Garage with the motto of Team Together Everyone Achieves More. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Prachi. She has command in various programming and scripting languages and is a very popular teacher with a vast teaching experience. Today we are going to cover strengths, dynamic memory, structures. We will be taking up the questions in the last 10 minutes of the session. You are advised to share full screen to ensure the smooth flow, and requested to fill the feedback form and attempt the quiz in order to receive the completion certificate. You all will be provided with the notes on the study material at the end of the session. Please read the rules and regulations. Any kind of behavior will not be tolerated and the person committing it will be no longer part of the boot camp. Ma'am, please take over and teach us. Happy learning, everyone.
Thank you, Alaika, for the humble introduction. I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah, please let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Today's topic is strengths and dynamic memory allocation. So we are starting with strengths and later on we will come to dynamic memory allocation. So first of all, let's understand what is strength and where we use them. So what is string? String is basically a collection of character. So it is used in most of the program, doesn't matter what programming language you are using. Okay, if you are in C, C++, Java, Python, strings are everywhere. Because if you want to store a person name or if you want to store book title or anything that contains collection of character, these all things require string. So string basically is a array of characters, right? So that ways the syntax of declaring the string is defined as follow. We declare it as an array of characters wherein we first specify the data type as char and then we specify name of our string. We can give it any name over here and later on we specify its size in the subscript. So here in this example we are creating a string with name and its size is 20. So 20 means what? Can we store 20 characters in this? No. We can't store 20 characters in this. We can store only 19 characters. But the size is 20. Then why only 19 characters? The reason being that last character is used to store the null character. So in C, it is required to terminate a string or to declare the end of a string with the help of a null character. So for that, in C we add a null character in the end, and null is represented by the null symbol in C. So this is basically the ASCII value of 0. So that means here we are terminating the string. So if we doesn't add a null character to a string, then compiler on our behalf automatically adds it. Okay. So if you are declaring a character array of size 50, so that means at max you can store 49 characters. You won't be able to store 50 because the 50th byte is going to be used by the null character. Now, what are the different operations we can use, we can do with the help of string? We can read and write string, we can copy string from one place to another. We may want to concatenate two strings. Suppose there is first name and last name of a person, so we want to concatenate it. Or if we are comparing two strings for the equality, or we want to extract a substring out of a full string. So number of operations are possible on strings, and we are going to look through all of these options one by one. There are some predefined functions as well in C which are defined in this file, in this header file, string.h. So there is no need to specify all these functions one by one manually. All these functions are written and predefined in the file, and we can use and call them. Let me share my screen for the program. Let me share some programs with you to have a more clarity on this concept. Yes, I hope my VS Code screen is visible to all the participants. Can
Yes,
somebody?
ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So this is the first program. In this program, we have declared a header file. Thereafter, we have declared a character array over here. So that means we are using a string. And here in this case, string size is 30. So that means at max, we can store 29 characters into it. Thereafter, we are asking user to enter name. And how we are getting that name? We are asking user to input characters one by one. So getChar is a predefined function uh, that is used to get input from the user one by one after the another. Okay, so here whatever user is typing in, it will take one character at a time and it will store it within the name array, and then it increases the counter, and this while loop will run until and unless we get the next line. Okay, so next line means we are terminating the character. So once user will press enter, only then this loop will terminate. Okay, so this way character by character we are getting input from the user, and we are storing his or her name in this name array. And after we have got the input from user, in the end we are adding a null over here, null as a terminator of string. So that means we are ending our string over here, and then we are printing its name. Okay, so let's run this program to see what outcome it gives. Yeah, so it is asking us to enter name. So we can enter any name over here. Suppose I enter Prachi over here. So here you can see in the output name colon Prachi is coming. Why? Because name is written over here, and this name variable is having Prachi as the output. So this way we can print string. So in this example we have print Prachi as a string. And why? How we have taken the input? We have taken the input as character by character. But now someone can ask me that why we are getting input as a character by character. This is a long code. Why can't we simply write scanf and then we can get input from the user? So let's see another example for the same. So here in this example, second example, as you can see, here we have declared a character array, and now we are asking user to enter the name. And whatever input user is typing, we are storing that input in form of scanf. So using scanf function, we are taking input from the user. And what format identifier we are using over here? %s. %s is for string. Like for integers, we use %d. For float, we use %f. So similarly, for strings, we use %s. So we have used %s to take input from the user, and thereafter we are printing it. So as you can see, this logic look much more simpler in comparison to the first one, because in the first one we were using loops as well as we were using getChar to get the input from user one by one. Here, using a single line, in a single go, we are taking string as an input from the user. Let's see if this works fine or if there is some problem with this code. So let's run this code. Okay, so here it is asking me to enter my name. Suppose I enter my name over here. Suppose I write Prachi Elawat. Okay. So once I write Prachi Elawat over here in the enter name, now the output which is coming to me is your name is Prachi. So in name, Prachi Elawat should be there. So it should come as your name is Prachi Elawat. But somehow it is only taking Prachi, it is not taking Elawat. Can anyone tell me why is it so? Is there any idea regarding the same? The reason being that scanf function terminates a string as soon as it encounters a space, a new line character, or a null. So whenever scanf function encounters a space, a new line character, it automatically terminates the string. It assumes that string is ending over here, but that is not the case. In that case, I was also typing in my last name. So that's why the scanf function is not very much successful in case of string, because it is not going to take the entire sentences, or in fact it is not going to take even two words if they are separated by space. So we should consider this problem, and we should find a solution to this problem. So to find solution to this problem, we are going to use another function. So here in this example, in this program, instead of scanf, as you all can see, I am using a gets function over here. So here gets function is going to take input from the user. So instead of scanf, here we are using gets. But how gets is going to help us? Let's see. So here, if we run this program, suppose I enter my name over here, and again I'm entering Prachi Ehlawat. So here in the gets, I have typed in Prachi Ehlawat, and in the puts, as you can see, my name is coming as Prachi Ehlawat. Only Prachi is not coming. My last name is also coming up over here. So gets and puts, gets matlab get string, and put means put string. So get means we are taking string as an input from the user, and puts mean we are printing string. So these gets and put functions are specifically defined for string, and they work for a string in a better way in comparison to the scanf function. So the difference between scanf and gets function is that in scanf we can get input of all type of data types. Like with scanf we can input integer variable, with scanf we can input float variable, string variable, any type of any data type you can use with the help of scanf. But if we talk about get, it is only going to work with string. Another difference between scanf and gets is that in scanf it terminates a string whenever it encounters a space or new line, whereas in case of gets it looks for new line or null symbol. It does not terminate a string once it encounters the space. So this is how the things are working, and that is why instead of scanf, whenever you are dealing with strings, you should always go with gets function and not with the scanf function. I hope this is clear to everyone.
Ma'am, can I ask a question, ma'am? I have a question that, ma'am, why we do not use anticipate in a scanf in for string, ma'am?
Sorry, can you please repeat your question?
Ma'am, anticipate means in any of the integer number we use anticipant of the value percentile d comma, then anticipant and symbol, and then we give the value name. Then in
Ampersand. You are talking
yes,
about
yes,
ampersand,
percent,
the and symbol which we use, right?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we are not using ampersand symbol in case of scanf in this program. Just wait, let me go to that program. So here we were not using ampersand over here. Reason being that ampersand represent the address, right? That address of this variable. But here, since name in itself is an array, so here it is automatically referring to the first element of that string, of that array. In integers we use the address symbol, we use the ampersand symbol because it is a single number and it is not representing the memory, it is representing the number. But here, since we are having the entire array, and this way the name is automatically specifying the base address of name array. So that is why in case of string there is no requirement of ampersand. Okay, I
Okay.
hope your doubt is clear now.
I
Okay.
mean, base address means the first value of the array, right?
Yeah, the first value. Like if we are storing an array, if we are storing an array, that means we are storing value in form of, let's assume 1 2 3 4 5. So wherever one is stored, its address is represented over here. So here name, if you print name only, so you will get to know that the name 0 is specifying the base address. Okay, so
Okay.
that is why in string ampersand is not required. Okay, let's proceed to the next program. So here in this program is really very interesting, wherein we are gonna see how we can pass strings to a function. So here we have used in a function display. So display is a function over here which is printing some string output. It is printing something, okay? But how we can pass character arrays using this? So here we have defined the main function. We have declared the string over here, and then we are taking string as an input from the user. Once we have got the input from the user using gets function, then we are calling this external function known as display. And here we are passing C as a variable. C is what? C is our string. We have already declared and got input in C from the user. So once you are passing this variable, this string over here in the function call, so now in function definition you need to specify is it this way. So you need to tell the data type like we generally do in all the functions. So whenever we are defining a function, first of all we need to specify the data type of those variables. So since here data type is a string, so again we are going to declare our variable as a string over here. And here instead of specifying size, we are writing a blank parenthesis over here, blank brackets we are using. We are not specifying size. Why? Because size has been already specified over here. So C will automatically carry the size. Suppose here you have declared 50, so that means this string can take maximum of 49 characters, right? But suppose if a user enter only 5 characters, so this function is only going to use 5 memory byte. It is not going to use 50 memory bytes. So whatever size you are using in, actually the size you are utilizing, that size will be used in this display function. So here there is no need to specify the size. We can simply pass the character array over here, and this way the value of C will get print over here. So let's run this program. So here we are going to enter string because this line has been executed, and now gets function is asking an input from us. So let's input it. Hi there, suppose I have typed that. So in the string output, puts function is there and puts function is print hi there. And how much size it has taken? It has taken how many bytes? So hi 2, there 5, 7, one is for space 8 and one is for null character. So instead of 50, only this character, this variable is using 9 bytes over here. So this way you can pass string inside a function. Okay. Now let me switch back to my PPT because we are going to presume over here. So till now we have discussed that how we can read and write string. Either with the help of get character, we can read single character one by one, or we can use scanf, but then it is not considering the space. So we can use gets and puts function, right? And some other functions are also there, like we want to copy one string to another, combine string, we want to calculate length of string. So instead of manually writing the code for each of the program, what we can do is we can use string.h file. Okay, this file is having these functions predefined, like stdio is using scanf and printf function predefined, and we are simply using them, calling them and using them. Similarly for string related functions, you can use this header file and it will sort out your task. So let's take an example over here. So here an example of initializing the strings has been given. So since we have seen this kind of example wherein we are declaring a character array and then we are specifying the content of that array. So here RAM is given. Why we have taken size 4? Because on the 4th byte we are going to store null character. So you can specify your size or you can leave it blank. If you leave it blank, so based on the user input, it is automatically going to calculate its size. So you can store them in this form as a sequence of character, or you can store them as a single character, separating them by comma. So since string is a collection of characters, so this way also you can store and this way also. Here you are explicitly specifying the null character in the end, and here you are not specifying, so compiler will add it on your behalf. So this is how we can use it. We have already done these programs. Yeah, so now we are going to use string handling functions, okay, using string.h. So the first program which comes to us is counting length of a string. How we can count length of a string, okay. So let's see, these are the various functions which we can use for plenty of things. So we are going to use them one by one. So for string length, we can use strlen. Strlen is a predefined function which can be used to calculate length of string, or otherwise you can create a loop and then one by one character you can find the size of string. So we are going to use string length. So let me switch my screen back to these. Okay. So here, as you can see in this program, so we have declared a string with the name of input string, size is 50. And here using get function, we have taken the input of that string from the user. Until we encounter a null, we are calculating length of the string. We initialized length equal to 0, and by using this loop, we are going to calculate the length of string one by one. So this is the manual method of calculating length of a string. So here we have used a loop, and the terminating condition is that until and unless we encounter a null character, we are just incrementing the length variable and we are calculating length of the string. And in the end, we are printing that length of this text is this much, right? So let's run this. Just a second. Like here, I have given input, hey, today is Wednesday. Okay, so it is calculating the length of the string, 23 characters. So until and unless it encountered a null, it kept on calculating the length. So this is the manual method of doing this. Okay, but suppose instead of using this manual method, if I prefer to use a predefined function, that is string length, strlen, then what will happen? So let's go to the okay. So here we have the program wherein we are saying input string, and then we are using this function strlen, which is a predefined function, and within this function we are passing the string for which we want to calculate the length. So here we have passed input string because input string is carrying the string for which I want to calculate length, and whatever length it is giving, I have stored that in an integer variable known as length. So basically this predefined function returns an integer value, and that integer value contains length of the string, and thereafter we are printing it. So it is really simple to use these predefined symbols instead of manually writing the code, manually writing the loop and then specifying the condition. So this thing is much more simpler to use in comparison to the earlier one. So here, let's try this. Suppose I write K there. So as you can see, it tells me that length of your string is 9 characters. So this way, either you can manually type in the logic using a loop, or you can use predefined function of string class. And here we have used str. Is it clear to everyone? I hope this is clear. Okay. So now the second function which we can use is string copy function, wherein we are copying a string to the another. Okay, so let's see that program now. Okay, so yeah, the program is here. Okay, so here in this program, as you can see that we have two strings. One is source string, another one is destination string. So copy is my source string. From this string, I'm gonna copy the string value and I'm gonna paste in the paste string. Okay, so copy is my input string and paste is my output string. Okay, so using gets, I get input for the copy array. Okay, then I have specified a loop wherein I'm specifying the terminating condition. This loop will run until and unless it encounters a null value, and meanwhile it will copy character by character from copy array to the paste array. And once this process has been done, in the end I am adding a null character to the paste array. and later on I'm printing it. So this is the manual method of copying the content of one string and pasting it to the another, right? So let's run this program to see. Okay, so here I want to write text which I want to copy. Okay, so I can write anything over there. I write copy paste program. Okay, so I have input that, and as you can see now in the output, when we are printing the paste variable inside puts function, paste variable is there. So when we are printing that paste variable, you can see it is having the same output, copy paste program. So whatever copy was having, it got pasted into paste variable. So this is how we can manually do it, copy paste it. But suppose I want to do it in a much simpler way. So what can I do is I can use str copy function, a predefined function, string copy function. So here I need to specify my source and my destination, and it will automatically copy the content from source to destination. So there is no need of writing the for loop logic over here. There is no requirement of writing loop, then copying it one by one, declaring one more variable. We can simply copy it with the help of a single command. So this is how the things are working over here. So this is how you can see that we have copied the value from copy to paste. Only thing you need to take care over here is that your source should come later and your destination should come first. So whenever you are copying from source to destination, so this should be the sequence, destination and then source. This thing you need to take care while using these functions. Okay, let's see a few more examples of string. So here in this example, we are doing concatenation. Okay, concatenation means we are combining two strings over here. So let's see that here we are having three string variables. In the first string array we are having college, in the second we are having of applied, and in the third we are having business. So what we are doing in this command, in this command string cat, we are concatenating string. And which strings we are concatenating? We are concatenating first two string, first name and middle name. The limitation over here is that within string concatenate you can only take two variables at one point in time. That is why we are not passing all three arrays. We are first passing first two character arrays, first two we have passed. Okay, so now if you will print it, you will be able to see college of applied. Why? Because we have concatenated first name and middle name. After that we have concatenated first name and last name. Why? Because now in the first name is a combination of first two, college of applied. Why? Because we have already concatenated them. So that is how we are going to use it, that first we will combine 1 and 2, then the value will go into the first one, then we will combine first with third to get the entire string, college of applied business. Let's see how does this work. Yeah, so here you can see first you got college of applied. Why so? Because in this puts is printing first name, and first name is a combination of first and middle name. Later on you have used one more statement wherein you have combined first and last name. So that is why the entire name is coming up over here. I hope this string concatenate function is clear to everyone. Now I am proceeding with the another function, that is compare function. Okay, so how we are going to use this compare function? So let's see that. So here we are going to compare two strings to determine whether they are equal or unequal. Okay, so this is the string compare predefined function over here, and in this string we are passing two strings over here in this predefined function just to compare. So as you can see that over here we are having first string, second string, and we are calculating a def value. Why? Because string compare is gonna return a value, an integer value, and it generally returns three values, either 0, -1 and +1. So these three value string compare return under all the circumstances. 0 will come when both the strings are equal. So if both the strings are equal, you will say that my output will be 0. Okay, but if strings are not equal, then you will either get -1 or +1. In what circumstances you are going to use, you are going to get -1, and under what circumstances you are going to use +1. Let's discuss that. So whenever you are getting -1, so that means the ASCII value of character in the first string is smaller than the ASCII value of character in the second string when they terminated. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Let me share an example with you. Let me run this so that I can explain it to you with the help of an example. Okay, here it is asking that enter the first string. So I typed hi. Enter second string. Again I type hi. So what output I will get? I will get hi is same as hi. So what is the value in this? Value is 0. So that is why it is printing this is same as you can see that if the diff value is 0, the logic will come over here. Okay, fine. So this is how it is functioning. But suppose I want to check for some other. If I will write hi as the first string and I'll write hey as the second string. Now what output I'm getting? I'm getting output as 1, positive 1, not negative 1. Why? Because h was same. So it compared h of first string with the second string. They were same. So the pointer moved to second character. So then it compared I with E. Now we all know that ASCII value of I is greater than E. E comes later, right? So ASCII value of I is greater than E. So that is why +1 is coming. But if it is reverse, suppose hey is your first string and hi is your second string. So ASCII value of E is smaller than I. So in that case, -1 will come. So here I is bigger than E, so that is why +1 is coming. Let's do the reverse. Let's again run it and let's type hi, hey as the first string, hi as the second string. Now what will happen? It will compare h with h are same, then it will compare E with I. Now the ASCII value of E is lesser than I. So the difference is -1. So this is how it compares. Okay, string compare. So if both the strings are equal, 0. If the ASCII value of first string is lesser than the second, -1. If higher, then +1. I hope this program is clear to all of you. Now let's do one more program related to string. Here what we are doing, here we are using string reverse function. So whatever we will type in the string variable, its value is gonna reversed. It will reverse the string. So there is no need to write the complicated logic. You can simply use this function to reverse the content of a string. So here you can see as I run this program, just a second, some error is coming over here. Let me just yeah. So it was missing this string.h file. So input string to be reversed. So let's type something. Let's type good. Okay. So as you can see, the reverse string is dog. Why? Because we have used string reversed function. So it reversed the string and stored the reversed value inside the string variable only. So this is how you can use predefined functions of string library. I hope this is clear to all of you. Now I'm going to proceed with the next topic of my session. Okay, so before that, let us discuss this thing, array of strings. So now we have a better clarity on the string. So now what are array of string? Now string is itself an array of characters. Now what is array of string? So array of string is going to be a 2D array of characters, because string in itself is a one dimensional array of characters. So array of string is two-dimensional array of character, and we are gonna represent it like this: char names 510. So we are going to use two dimensions over here. And what does this actually specifies? This specifies that I can declare 5 names. And what can be the maximum name of length of those names? The maximum length of those names can be 10. Okay, so I can write 5 names over here with a maximum length of 10. Okay, so this is how you can declare a 2D array. Suppose you want to store name of all of your friends, right? So what you are going to use in that case, you are going to use 2D array, because each one in each dimension you can store name of one of your friends. So this was all about strings. Now we are going to discuss memory allocation in C, dynamic memory allocation in C. Okay, so dynamic memory allocation is like we can specify the size of a variable at the runtime. So during runtime, we can specify the size of a data structure. There is no need of specifying it at the beginning. Like whatever we have done so far in the strings, we have declared the string with their size. We have already specified the size. We have already allocated the size, right? So if you do not want to allocate the size manually, then what you can do? Then you can use dynamic memory allocation. Why this dynamic or runtime memory allocation is important? Let us understand this with the help of an example. So here I have taken an example. Here I have taken an array whose length is 9. That means I can store 8 characters into it and then a null character, right? So the length is 9 over here. Okay, but now I only need to store 5 elements. I declared it of 9 length, but I actually going to store only 5 elements, not more than that. So what happened? So only 5 units of memory are going to be utilized, and remaining 4 units of memory will get waste because the user is not using them. So those many bytes of memory will be wasted. Or suppose in another situation wherein you declared an array of size 9, but you want to store 13 variable over there, or you want to store more variables over there. So what you need to do? Then you need to add its size. You need to change it from 9 to 12 or 13 or 14 or something like that. So whenever your requirement changes, it increases or decreases, either you're gonna waste some memory or you need to redeclare your variable, right? So to address this concern, to address this problem, instead of statically allocating the memory, what we can do is we can allocate the memory at runtime. And how we can do that, we are going to discuss about it. Okay, so these are certain functions which we can use for dynamic memory allocation. Malloc, calloc are basically used for dynamic memory allocation. Realloc is used whenever you want to modify your memory requirements. Suppose you requested for some memory, but right now your requirement changes, so you want to redesign your memory requirements, then you can use realloc. And then free is used to free the memory which you got allocated using malloc, calloc or realloc functions. So whenever you want to release memory, you can use free function. So we are going to discuss all these functions in more detail. So first of all, it is really important to understand the difference between malloc and calloc. First of all, what does malloc stands for? So malloc stands for memory allocation. M is for memory and alloc is for allocation. Similarly, calloc stands for contiguous allocation. Okay. So in case of calloc, we allocate multiple block of memory of same size. So if I specify calloc 4, so that means I'm going to get 4 units of memory. Okay, so we allocate multiple blocks of memory. Whereas if I talk about malloc, it allocates a single block of memory. we are not going to get multiple blocks. We are going to get one big block. Suppose your requirement is of 4 bytes. So using Kellogg, you are going to get 4 bytes separately as 1 byte, 2 byte, 3 byte, 4 byte separately. But here you are going to get all the bytes all together. Okay. In case of malloc, it contains garbage value. But in Kellogg, it initializes all the values to 0. So it reformats the memory to 0. There are no garbage values. And that is why it is slower, because it will first format the memory and then allocate it to the user. But here we are allocating the memory to the user as it is. So it may contain garbage value. So that is why malloc works faster in comparison to Kellogg. So these are a few of the very basic differences between malloc and Kellogg. Now we are going to discuss them one by one. So let's first discuss about malloc. So malloc, as we all know, is going to allocate us memory at the runtime. It is going to give us a block of memory at the runtime. So whatever type of memory you may need, suppose you want a integer format memory, or for character you want that memory, so you can specify it over here. So in malloc, you specify the byte size, that how many bytes of memory you actually require, 2 bytes, 10 bytes, 20 bytes, how many bytes of memory you are going to use. And thereafter you typecast that memory into that type. Suppose if you want integer type memory, that means you want to store integer type variables into the memory, then you typecast them into int or float or char as per your requirement. So in malloc, because it is going to give us a single block of memory, so only one variable is over here. But if we talk about Kellogg takes two variables as input. Malloc only takes a single variable as input. So here in Kellogg, you need to specify two elements over here. Suppose you want memory for 4 integers. So you will write 4 over here. So your n is going to be 4 and your element size is going to be 2, because int generally take 2 bytes of memory. But here if we talk about malloc, you are going to write 4 into 2, because we are going to get a single block. Here you are getting different blocks, multiple blocks. So here you can separate them with the help of comma, and you can separately specify that how many units you need and what is going to be the size of that unit, and then you can typecast it accordingly. So this is how you can use malloc and Kellogg. So let's see example of these malloc and Kellogg, then we will proceed further. So first of all, let's see an example of malloc over here. So here we have declared a structure. So what is structure? Structure is again an array, but here the data types can be different. Like in array, we store all the variables of same type. If there is integer variable, we can only store integer type variables over there. If it is a float array, we can only store float type values over there. If it is a character array, we can only store character over there. But if you are using structure, so that means you can store different type of variables over there. So as you can see that in the structure, we have declared a structure. Struct is basically the keyword, and imp is the name of that structure. So here we have declared a structure, and that structure is having one integer, one string, and one float. Why? Because structures can have different type of variables, and in real life it is more important to have different type of variable, because suppose for a student I want to I want to store a student record, then I want to store his name, in what is his roll number, right, what is its address. So I want to store data in form of string, want to store data in form of int, I may want to store data in form of float as well. Suppose he bought some books, so I want to store that what is the price of those books, so that thing will be in float. So in real life, structures are more important and useful in comparison to array under number of circumstances. So here we have declared a structure over here. So this is the data type which we have defined, like generally you use int, float. So this imp is basically a user defined data type. So now imp is the data type. Now what is the variable name? So variable name you need to specify now. So here we have specified variable name as PTR. So we generally create the variable name in form of pointer in case of structured data type. So this is our data type. Struct int is our data type and pointer is our variable name. Okay, so we have created one pointer over here. We want to allocate memory to this struct, right? So to allocate memory runtime for this structure, we have used malloc function. Why? Because the memory has not been allocated to imp as of now, to pointer as of now. So we are using malloc function, a runtime function, to allocate the memory. And within malloc, all of you know, we can only pass one single variable. So here we have passed struct imp size of. Why? Because we want to calculate the size, and that many bytes our system is going to allocate to us. Okay, so whenever we pass size of and then some variable, so it will calculate its size and it will allocate that much memory to us. So here how much memory will be allocated to us? 2 for int, 10 for this, 12, and 4 for float. So 16 bytes of memory this malloc function is going to allocate to us. And then we need to typecast it, right? So this is the syntax of malloc. So whatever type of memory you are taking in, since you are taking a memory in form of a structure variable, so you need to typecast it to struct variable. So this is how the memory gets allocated to you within the pointer variable. So if the system allocates memory to you, then you can perform rest of the function. But if there is no sufficient memory in the system, then it will return null. That means your system is out of memory. So this is why we have put in these conditional statements over here. And here we are writing that if pointer is null, that means if there is no enough memory in the system, print out of memory to the user. But if system has memory and it has allocated memory to us, if pointer is not null, in that case, print the details of employee. So what details we are printing in, what details we are getting from the user, since we have used scanf, so that means we are getting details from the user. And what details we are getting? We are getting employee number, name, and then this field, this salary of the user. So these fields we are getting from the user. Okay, but you cannot directly use employee number, name, and escalation. So for that you need to use string variable, and string variable, the structure variable over here is pointer. So whatever we are going to access in form of employee name or salary, we are going to use it with the help of this pointer. Without this we can't access these things. Please do take care of this thing. Okay, so let's run this. Let's try to run this program. It is saying me enter the employee details. Okay, so what things I'm going to type in? I'll type the employee name, number. Suppose the employee number is 1, then I'll type the name, some name. Suppose I'll type John over here, and then I'll type salary. Okay, so suppose 1000 is the salary. So our program ran successfully, right? Why? Because we have allocated memory to the pointer variable at runtime. If there was not sufficient memory, we could have got this message out of memory. So this is how you can allocate memory to any type of variable at runtime. Here we have allocated the memory to a structure at runtime. Let's take an example of calloc. Okay, so in calloc, instead of using a structure, we have used a simple integer variable over here. And as you can see that in calloc, we are passing 2 input variables, whereas in malloc, we just pass one single variable. And what are these 2 variables? N is the number of units which we want to get. And what is the size of those units? Size of those units is int. So basically we want to get a number of elements over here, and those are stored in form of int. So basically we are using it that how many elements we are going to take and in what form we are going to take it in integer form. So whatever size, whatever unit you are using over here, if you are using int over here, so you need to type typecast it to int. Earlier we have used structure over here, so that is why we were typecasting it to structure. If you are using float over here, then you will typecast it to float. So this is how you are allocating memory at runtime in a variable, okay, a pointer. So here in A we have stored the memory, okay, so we are having memory now at runtime, and using this loop we are getting values from the user one by one, and we are storing those values, list of numbers, and later on using printf function we are printing those values. And once we got the values from the user and we printed those values, thereafter we use free function, free A. Why A? Because A was the variable in which Kellogg allocated the memory. A was the pointer in which Kellogg returned the memory. So whenever you will use a free function, you have to specify that which variable you want to get free. So in this case, it is the pointer A. So that is why within the free function you have passed A over here. Okay, so this is how you can free your dynamically allocated memory, and last May you return it. Okay, so this is how you can use Kellogg. So just run this program. Okay, it has returned us, I'm sorry, just type it here. So here you can type the elements over here, 1 2 3 4 5. So once you will print it, it should return all the variables over here. Just a second, I think there is some problem with the program right here. Otherwise it should not have happened. Okay, number of elements you want to enter. So I want to enter three elements. Okay, so I want to enter 3 elements, enter 3 numbers. Suppose I enter 4, x and 1. So now it is returning me the number entered are 4, 6 and 1. So this is how you can enter your number, and thereafter you can print them using Kellogg function. So how much memory got allocated to you in this case? That you have taken on the runtime. Jitne user ne number of elements specify kiye, only that much amount of memory the Kellogg function is allocating to you. So no extra or lesser memory is there. So with the help of runtime allocation, you can allocate only that much amount of memory, and thereafter you can, after using them, you can use free function to free that memory. Okay, so this was all about the Kellogg. So let's go to the realloc function over here. So realloc function. So suppose you have allocated some memory using malloc function. So here you have allocated 2 integers memory using malloc function. Okay, and within these 2 integer memory, what you have stored? You have stored 10 and 20. Okay, so you took 2 bytes of memory for 2 integers, 2 bytes for the first integer and 2 bytes for the second integer. And in the first integer you store 10, and in the second you store 20. Why? Because in the pointer we are storing 10, and in the pointer plus 1, that means to the next memory location, we are storing 20. But now the need arises to store the third element as well. But earlier the requirement was of 2, but later on it came that you need to store the third variable as well. So what function you can use? You can use realloc function in that case. Okay, reallocate the memory. So here we have reallocate. We need to reallocate the memory. So we need to pass the same pointer which you used in malloc function. You will pass the same pointer as first input variable, and then you will specify the new size. Earlier the size was 2, now the size is 3. Why? Because now it is going to make changes to this pointer, and instead of 2 it will allocate it 3 bytes. Okay, 3 integers over here. And now in the third location you are storing it as 30. So once you have done that, once you have stored value at these three memory location as 10, 20 and 30, now if you will print your loop, and now if you will print those values, you will now get 10, 20 and 30. So this is how, even if you have declared lesser amount of memory in the earlier stages, so later on you can use reallocate function to reallocate your memory to increase or decrease it. And in the last, you can use free function to free the pointer. Which pointer you will use in this case to free the memory? Pointer new. Why? Because this is the latest pointer which is having all the memory, right? Because pointer variable has already been used as an input. So this is how you can use these functions, and this is what it is written over here as well, that you can use free function to free the memory which was assigned to you using calloc or malloc function. Otherwise it can crash your system. It will consume all the memory and crash your system. And for realloc, as we already discussed, that realloc can take two inputs: the first pointer, the initial pointer which we used in malloc and calloc, and the new size to create a new pointer with new memory. So that was all for this session. If there are any doubts, then please go ahead. Any doubts, anyone?
If anyone has any doubts, please raise your hands. We can solve it. Ma'am, I want to thank you for taking out time for us and preparing such a nice presentation and clear all our basics. Thank you for such a deep understanding, and you can see there are no doubts. I also appreciate all the attendees for being the part of our boot camp. We are ending the meeting now and hope to see you all tomorrow. Stay tuned for updates in the WhatsApp group and don't forget to fill the feedback form as well as attempt the course. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Alaika. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.